Hello, hello. I'm Mr. Monty, geometry teacher, Lewis and Clark High School. And this is lesson 19, getting near the end of the 2020 series in preparation for the EOC exam at the end of the month. Lesson 19 to trig, SOHCAHTOA, trig functions, where we can take any right triangle, and if we're given one of the angles, we can find the legs and the hypotenuse lengths. If we're given the legs and the hypotenuse lengths, we can back it in and find the actual measurements of the angles. Now, in order to learn this, we actually learned the mnemonic, and we spent some time trying to memorize and get all the different shapes together. So let's recap that. SOHCAHTOA, and in class we talked about opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. So here's an example shape, 90-degree triangle. Let's write these out. If you remember, mine was Oscar has a heap of apples. That's the way I learned it 30 years ago. So let's look at sine of A. Well, we're going to have to put an angle in there. Sine of angle A is equal to the opposite, little a, over the hypotenuse, little c. The cosine of A is equal to little b over little c, the adjacent next to the hypotenuse. And finally, tangent of A, tangent of this angle, is the opposite over the adjacent. So that'd be little a over little b. Let's actually look at an example. A right triangle. We're given the two legs, and we have to find the hypotenuse and these two angles. Wow. Well, I'm a Pythagorean theorem kind of guy. If I know the two legs, I can find that hypotenuse. Okay? So let's try it. This is leg 1. This will be leg 2. So, to find the hypotenuse, the HYP, we know that we take leg 1 squared, 3.1 squared, plus 8.9 squared. Do that math. We're going to come out with an answer for our length of that hypotenuse. Once we have the leg, this hypotenuse, we can actually go through and calculate everything. Let's just give this one a name up here. We're going to call this one B. That'll be angle B. Well, angle B, even though I don't know the hypotenuse, because I didn't bring a calculator today, don't worry, because I have two legs. Two legs. Well, SOHCAHTOA. Can you remember which one of these doesn't need the hypotenuse? Which one of these did not need the hypotenuse in order to calculate that angle? Opposite over hypotenuse? No. Adjacent over hypotenuse? No. Opposite over adjacent. So we're going to use tangent. Tangent of B is equal to opposite over the adjacent. But our calculator doesn't do that. We have to use the inverse. So on our calculator, we can rewrite this. B equals, the actual angle measure is equal to the inverse tangent of 8.9 over 3.1. So, depending on which calculator we have, we type in 8.9 divided by 3.1 equals, and then inverse tangent to get our actual angle measure. Some calculators you can actually hit the inverse tangent button, and then in the parentheses 8.9 divided by 3.1 close the parentheses, and hit enter. So make sure you've practiced that before you walk into the test so you know which calculator you'll be using. Well, now that I got this angle, I could subtract. I could take 180 minus the 90 minus angle B and find angle A. Or, we'll do it the hard way. The tangent of A is indeed equal to the opposite over 8.9, the adjacent. Again, to use a calculator, angle A is equal to the inverse tangent of 3.1 over 8.9. So, during the EOC, they're probably going to give you some sort of a triangle with 2 or 3 items, and you're going to have to use your knowledge of trig functions to find the other leg, the other hypotenuse, a couple of the angles. But you know these things. Remember, all triangles that have a right angle are 180 degrees. We can do some subtracting. We can use the Pythagorean theorem. We can work ourselves through it. So take your time. Remember a couple of these rules, and you'll be successful on the EOC. This finishes lesson 19. We'll see you next time for the last lesson in our 2020 series, where we're going to be talking about the special right triangle. We'll see you then.